You guys are here pretty early, so you actually get first choice on which rooms you want.
Excerpt from the Ted Zonko Symposium on Science and Society.
So, the guy basically directs, pick any room you like. There's only a couple of people on board, and they are in the next section. So I should also point out some of the geometry of the spaceship. It's a little funky. So you might notice that it's all seems to be one level, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's not quite right. The ship actually is sort of like a stick of butter, and you guys are on the wrapper. Due to artificial gravity, you can actually have multiple different planes of orientation around a shape. So the middle of the ship is actually a cargo hold, with the living areas are on the sort of outer sides of that, on the four sides there. So the red zones are actually sort of the transitions between one area and the other. There's like little handrails and things like that to help you sort of move from one to the other area without too much trouble. But inside the different sections, it's generally flat.
Okay.
I bet that feels real weird.
Yep. This also means that if you run off the left side of the map, you end up on the right. Fun.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. So I'm a lot closer to the gym than I look.
Yep. So what rooms do you guys want?
Do we each get our own orders? Okay.
Yep. I haven't decorated them, but you know.
Yeah. I just go into the first one. It doesn't matter. On the left.
Go and move yourself in. So go and do that for the rest of you guys too. So. All right. That's you guys' rooms. Alex will be along at some point, but he might not get so lucky. So, so each of the rooms has a bed, a sink, a toilet, but no showers. I think I have that somewhere else. Probably. Maybe I'll figure it out later. Forgot what else I put in this thing here. Anyway, so it's tight but comfortable, and it is kind of nice. You get your own room each.
It's like a cruise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guys get to live it up for the next 3 weeks, in fact. Your
man.
itinerary says. Yes. So you guys gonna get comfortable, get situated, and let's see
my
what.
stuff away. Yeah.
And I'm going to roll. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just kind of I walk into my room and just sort of awkwardly stand in the middle of it, realizing I have no use for any of this.
That is acceptable. The place for you to plug your power cord in.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to make a roll to see what happened to Jar's luggage. Oh, that's not good.
Okay.
It might be up. It might be up to Alex to see what happened to it.
I assumed it was just gone when the computer mishaps happened, so I didn't know it was still having a chance to get
It does.
with me.
It's remote, but you might not have it for the next adventure. We'll see what happens. All right.
Okay.
This will be part of a spin-off story called Jar's Luggage.
The adventures of a gun in a backpack rotating on a luggage carousel for 2 years.
It's like Star Wars, where the like gun in the backpack is actually the main character that just kind of gets brought along through all these adventures.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe fast forward us a little bit, if that's all right, unless you guys want to get up to any shenanigans here. At some point, Alex does get on the ship, but the why and how of that I'll leave up to future us to figure out. So got a little exposition dub here if you're interested.
Well,
Sure.
All right. The first leg of the journey is for the most part uneventful. The crew and passengers are in high spirits overall. The food is good, the entertainment options plentiful, and there's not anyone on board who seems prone to poking their nose into your business. You also notice that band I mentioned is also aboard. Surprise! Where was I?
Our new friends.
I know, right? 2 days after leaving Elcor, the Cairo docks with another hyperspace-bound space station. It's much smaller than Elcor and is attached to a planet called Jessup. The next stop comes a few days later with an even smaller station that only twice the size of the Cairo itself. The smaller station services a moon called Francesca. Next stop isn't for almost a whole week. The Cairo remains in hyperspace, following the artificially created rifts in hyperspace to quickly move between star systems. And according to the captain and crew, it is making good time by avoiding hesitating in less compressed hyperspace too long at any of the in system transits between rifts. That came out all mangled there. Sorry. In the lounge, there's a display listing the nearest star in normal and estimated distance in either light years, in either light years or astronomical units, whichever is more useful. A few passengers seem to enjoy charting on their computers where the Cairo is and how far it's gone since they left Elcor. One evening, after dinner is served, for whatever reason, you find yourselves in a lounge at the same time as several other passengers. One of them, whom you recognize as Tandem from the rock band Inverted Minds, who I mentioned you met earlier, invites you to join him and the band for a bit of socializing. He's there with Garmachi, the drummer, and Notorious ABE, the band's main vocalist. I'm going to go ahead and move you guys to the old common room over here. You're hanging out with these guys here. And,
cool. Hanging out with the band.
There's like couches and TVs and things like that and whatever. So, one of them just kind of got done telling a long-winded story that didn't seem to go anywhere. But one of them asks, "You guys got any interesting stories?" And one of them gives a nod to Jar because he has to go sooner. You got anything, man?
Nothing but my fairly unique, for this planet, really, upbringing, if that is an interest to you.
Oh, sure. Let's go for it. Yeah, we're interested in sharing interesting stories. Not a whole lot else to do on long voyages like this. So, yeah, tell us about yourself. Tell me about your planet.
Well, there hasn't, obviously, as I just said, there haven't been many big events in my life aside from the chance to come here. My upbringing was pretty simple and relaxed. I grew up mainly with my mother, and my father died shortly after my birth to various beasts around my planet.
Man.
But there was no actual proof of what happened to him. He just sort of left one day and didn't return. So that's all that could have been assumed. I didn't have any siblings either. I just lived with my mom until leaving the planet. She was a wonderful woman. She taught me most of what I know about just surviving. She did get ill before before I had the chance to come to this planet, and that is my hope of getting back there one day to hopefully she's still fine. The illness didn't seem to be going anywhere dramatic, but it did cripple her in terms of being able to do things on her own.
Oh man, I hope she's all right.
That's my hope as well. Aside from her, though, I did have a few friends in the town I was in. The town was more of a collaborative effort of survival. I don't think I could say I had any true best friends. Just close acquaintances, of course. Um, as for what I did in the town, though, I did mainly small tasks around the town, such as keeping all the little gadgets working, like fixing minor problems with weapons, making small deliveries, retrieving small deliveries, and other minuscule tasks. So the town was definitely a group effort to stay running. And that's pretty much what I've been doing.
Oh, wow. I'm guessing spaceships and all that's kind of big city stuff compared to what you're used to.
Oh, easily. That was the first time I've actually seen one was when the crew came and found our planet and took me back here.
Oh,
Well, not
so
here, but Lanton.
oh, you're flying like from one of those out colony type places. Wow. Keep hearing about you guys, but I don't think I've ever met someone from there.
It seemed fairly normal to me, but I guess it's interesting to you.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes sometimes.
Where are you from?
Well, this is Garmachi speaking. Where's his info? Well, I am. Well, don't let anyone here know, but I'm originally from one of the Andirect planets. Hope you forgive me if I don't actually give the exact name because they keep changing. It's really kind of annoying. But I spent most of my time on the planet Rodus, and I spent some time in the military before I picked up music and joined the band. I do got a story about that if you're interested.
Oh, of course.
By the way, Jar, if you need to run, feel free to sort of pop out short notice. I just want to make sure we got to your stuff first.
Yeah, that's good. I have like 20 minutes ish.
All right. So Garmachi then starts telling his tale. I didn't always play the drums. During the Great Core War, I was drafted and turned into a medic of all things. Wasn't a good one, but hey, I saved a few lives, I think. Wasn't my job to rebuild people, just to make sure they could be rebuilt. The rest of my unit was filled with actual medical professionals, which was kind of useful. Some of them were pretty cool. A month after the disaster, that was the Metris campaign, my unit was called in for a award ceremony. Pretty much everyone was to be given some medals. Had become a tradition of sorts that anyone receiving medal would actually get two, with the expectation that the unearned medal would be either refused outright for respect for the dead, or passed on to the families of someone that was lost. And usually the more prestigious the medal is the one you surrender. Real sweet, yes, but let's just say that after the 15th idiot in line before me gave a long speech to make this demonstration, I was a little peeved. Plus, it was kind of slap in the face in some ways. I felt that why don't they just give the medals to the people who deserve it posthumously in the first place? So, when I finally got up there, and do note that beforehand they don't tell you what you're getting. So I was like, I'll probably get a couple commendations and then a really impressive medal or something like that. So I get up there, and they award me the Direct Star, and only the star. If you're not familiar with the Anti-Direct Awards, this is kind of a big deal. Like, not quite top level, but pretty close. And no, I did not deserve it. This was ridiculous that they even give me this pageantry medal to pass on to somebody. But they did give me it's like the third most prestigious honor in the Alliance. The expectation that I refuse it and hand it off to somebody I knew, and I did know a few people that probably deserved it more than me. But, well, I just thanked the Fleet Admiral who had given it to me, and then I went and sat down. I got a few hymns as I went, but I did not stop. The next day, I got called to my SO's office for a little bit of talking to about respect and disrespect. And he asked me if I had anything to say. I asked if I could speak freely and got to go ahead. I think my exact words were, if the brass wants to award the dead with honors, they can do it themselves. I'm tired of burying their bodies and having to be the only one who pays respects. And I'm not alone there. Please fix this. And a few months later, I was at another awards ceremony. One of my friends was up. Unlike how it had been before, there were actually honors given to those killed in action. And no more of the sappy proxy pageantry. That felt better. So, yeah, I'm not prone to talking about my time in the service, but I'm kind of proud about that moment. And I guess that's more important than maybe where I'm from as far as places go. So, yeah. And Garmachi, who wants to go next? He'll nod at you.
Yes, I could. What?
Right. And then he nods at you, Geplin.
Oh, I do have a few stories, but many of the interesting ones are of a younger man in a much, much different life than the one I lead now. I too was something of a soldier. I didn't fight in the wars. I did work for many private military organizations as a freelance gun for hire, you might say. Oh, my most memorable mission was Advanced Scout. Myself and a partner were sent out as Advanced Scout to one of the older unregistered worlds where a colony had been set up many, many years ago, but had lost contact, and we were sent to see if there was anyone left in the colony, and if there were, to negotiate resource rights for one of the larger mining consortiums. What I didn't expect was, when we arrived, it was a paradise planet. The temperatures never rose too high or too low. Most of the fauna was edible. There were no large predators, very few diseases. It was really quite a paradise world, and the people there, though they must have come with technology, it had since fallen into such disrepair from lack of use that they were mostly farmers, but the climate was such that it really did not take much of their time to feed themselves. Now, since we were an advanced unit, we spent a few months on this planet. We had more time than we anticipated, and we wound up living in a small village in which we were accepted fairly readily. Now, I lived there for several months and made many friends. I won't go into too many details because, as idyllic of a life as it can be on a paradise world, it is fairly boring to hear one talk about days spent wandering around sunny beaches and eating strange exotic alien fruits. But one day, I wandered farther from the village than I had. I'd heard rumors that there may have been some old ruins from a long-dead civilization, and I wanted to see. We'd been there about 3 months at this point, and it had completely slipped my mind that we were to be checking in with our off-world teams. Now, I got a little lost and was away from the village longer than I expected, but on my way back I could tell that something was somewhat wrong. I started to smell smoke, and I saw fires raising from the area of the village. I broke into a run, and when I got close by, I saw that there was a large mining consortium ship that had landed nearby. The village was in flames. Many of the people were running and screaming. It was quite the opposite of the idyllic vision of this village that I'd come to know and expect. Without really thinking, I pulled my weapon and was just about to open fire on the people who were setting fire to the village when one of them called me by name, and I recognized it as my commander and the one who held my contract for this mission, and he just congratulated me on such a successful recon and leading them straight to the village. It took me a minute to remember that I had not turned off my locator when we arrived, and since I had not checked in, I believe they came in guns firing. I was too shocked to know what to do then. The village that I'd lived for several months was destroyed, and my life in the military was more or less over. That was the last private contract I took for mining consortiums. Since then, I've dedicated myself to more naturalistic and exploratory missions. That I will always try to remember my time in that little village and how one mistake of not turning off a transmitter can change so many people's lives.
The reaction from the trio is they're flabbergasted and shocked. In fact, Tandem is like, wow, that's horrible, man. He looks to the others in the group, and they, sort of gives them a nod. We should, do some awareness campaigns, let people know that this kind of crap goes on.
Your military men, they all have these terrible memories we have to carry with us.
Garmachi nods. Yeah, there's definitely some things I'd like to forget. Notorious ABE is like, well, Simon, I'm gonna be with you. I'm gonna lay it to you straight. If you never need anything, get some word out about this kind of stuff, you have my card there. Feel free to give me a poke through it. All right?
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. Notorious then looks over to Tandem and is like, well, I know Tandem always has some crazy stories to maybe lighten the mood. You got one? And he's like, I'm not sure I should give my story at this point because that's some pretty heavy crap right there. But if you guys are interested, he kind of motions to you three.
I could always use something to lighten the mood. Do forgive. I fall into these remembrances and don't, fail to read the room sometimes. So please feel free to lighten the mood.
No, it's fine, man. It's this. I have to thank you for telling me the story. This, I know it's very important for you, and I just don't want to, be trample on your memory there. And the message you're giving for us today. So I want to give that as my respects here.
I appreciate that, but the light must live with the dark. We all should remember that there's a good time for every bad in this universe.
Well, how about this? I got a story that's good for the mood, but that was bad for me at the time. How about that?
Sounds like an amusing tale.
All right. Let's see another tale of woe about me. Let's see. So, I guess there was that time I got thrown off of a mountain. Yeah, it really should have killed me. So it all began years and years ago. It was at the biggest gig of my life up until that point. For legal reasons, I'll leave out which festival this was, but trust me, it was huge. I was rocking and tearing crap up. Good times. It was a blast. I can remember some of it. So after the show, one of the organizers invited me up to a party with a bunch of the other musicians. It was being held at the home of one of the big names from one of the other acts. Again, forgive me for not giving names. Just know that he was one of the gods of rock locally and pretty well known off the world too. His place was this bizarre mansion on top of a mountain, hence the mountain. Real up in the cloud stuff. But even then, I think the people back at the festival grounds, I think we could hear them, even though they're like 100 kilometers off, and more to the point, I think they could hear us when the party really got started. I honestly forgot how long the party had been rocking. Seems like an eternity. Maybe like, I don't know, a few weeks maybe. I actually honestly lost track of time. I honestly can't remember everything. But I do remember this bit. And I'm pretty sure I saw the sun rise and set a few points. Anyway, at one point, started flirting with this lady. Early 20s, beautiful, a real come hither attitude. And as one might expect, I woke up the next morning with her by my side in one of the bedrooms of the mansion. What I didn't realize was this was actually her room. What more, when I woke up, I was greeted by the scowl of a 10-foot tall, angry skull crusher of a guy I recognized immediately as the dude who owned the house. Needless to say, I'm glad the drop off the balcony was only 10 meters. What I was less happy about was when I tumbled another 100 or so, I think, down into a ravine before I came to a stop. And that, my friends, is how I got tossed off a mountain and had to get 3 of my limbs replaced. So reactions?
Wow.
So, I mean,
There's
Hexlug is like utterly silent. So,
yeah, this does get some chuckles from the other 2 members of the band as well. Tandem then looks at you, Bill, Mr. Hexlug there. He's like, "How about you? You've seemed like quite the unusual model there. Do you have any interesting tales of adventure or woe to tell us this evening?"
so my giant illuminated red eye kind of flicks maybe a little nervously between everybody that's been telling stories so far. And I hesitate and then say, most of my stories involve hunting humans. You do not want to hear them.
The band members look at each other a bit concerned, but also very, very curious now. Notorious says, "Sir, are you a military robot?"
Affirmative.
And you're hanging around with these guys?
Affirmative.
They continue to exchange confused but curious looks. All right, there's got to be a story there somehow, says Notorious.
I would rather not share.
All right. Bill, are you going to bow out from storytelling, or shall I prod harder?
You can prod as hard as you want. I think it would be against his inclination to tell any story because they're all literally about hunting human beings.
All right.
So especially after like a series of war stories.
Yes. All right. The group will.
In fact, I think after that point, I'll probably just like be utterly silent, and only the illumination of his eyeball will indicate that he's even still on.
In that case, the trio of musicians exchange a few more looks, and then one of them says, "Hey, Notorious, don't you got an interesting story? Maybe something not about humans or ordering them?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I got one. You guys want to hear it?" He looks to you 3.
Of course.
Well, if we don't get to hear about human hunting, I suppose.
Well, maybe you guys can talk about that in your own time. But I got an interesting tale. So, this story's a story that's not about me. It's not about myself. But it's one I got from my late great-great-grand aunt. Saints protect her soul. So she used to work on a ship when she was young. Never could tell if she was in charge of the fusion reactor or the cook. Possibly both. The ship she was on was exploring planets beyond the rim about 400 or 500 years ago. And beyond the rim, I really do mean beyond the rim, like beyond today's rim. So way out there. They were on a university contract to search for intelligent life. And you could say they found something. As is often the case with these things, nothing alive, but still something. So in hyperspace, there is some bleed over for gravity. So to some extent one can tell where these stars are, but not so much planets where they're at, as their effect from the planets was just too weak to bleed on through, at least in any noticeable capacity. So before ships like that could get too close to a star system, they pop out of hyperspace to have a look around, make sure where all the planets are at, so they don't just suddenly pop out right in front of one. One day, the ship pops out of hyperspace and starts doing their survey of a star. As they do, they spot something relatively nearby. Turns out it was another spaceship, a big one. And no, it wasn't like the one that attacked Earth 1,000 years ago, not in the least. But still, it was massive, huge. They managed to sort of dock with it and got to exploring. They investigated it for months. Interior was open to vacuum, so they had to go in suits. A real hassle. And they had a limited budget of supplies. And were already nearing the point where they need to turn back to home base. They got a lot of data, and she mentioned 3 things that stood out to her. First off, the bodies of the aliens. They were crazy 4-legged things with 2 spindly little arms. Kind of like you, Hexlug. And not like Mr. Eyebot, More of a larger body, central, for she's showing me the pictures. And what you'd call their heads also clearly didn't serve the same function or purpose as ours. They were still really short, as she said. Kind of odd looking, you could say. The second thing that stood out to her was the ship seemed to be a generation ship. Thing that had been built to ferry these guys between the stars without going into hyperspace. So they were taking the long way to get around. And something happened. The third thing that she wanted to, she mentioned that in the middle of the ship, they found some sort of weird shrine, and it made her very uncomfortable to be in it. Probably because most of the bodies in there had died before whatever happened to disable the ship and kill all aboard. There was also a central pedestal with this weird black cube upon it that was giving off a fair bit of radiation. They found the shrine near the end of their time there, so couldn't dig too much more into the info about what it was all about. But she did tell me that it still gave her nightmares centuries later, her time visiting that shrine. Supplies running low, they left the beacon on the wreck and headed back into hyperspace, dropping a second one there. Dropping the beacon in hyperspace, that is. After resupply, they headed back to do more investigating of the ship. They didn't find the dang thing. They found the beacon in hyperspace, but not the ship on the other side. And then, looked around for months, in fact. I know the thing had just up and vanished. Still kind of freaks me out thinking about it. There might be things like that all over space. Makes you really think. And Notorious brings his story to a close. And Jar is needing to head out, so Poodles Jar. And unless there's anything else you guys want to discuss with Mr. Notorious here, that's the end of his story.
Reminds me of the tales of the old ghost ships of Earth.
Yeah, see, I'm familiar with those.
Travelers on ancient oceans would see ghostly ships or find ships abandoned with the crew gone, no indication of what happened, as if they all simply just walked into the sea. And ships would sail empty for years at a time, and sometimes would appear out of the fog or moor themselves at docks years later, It's one of the great mysteries of the early times of exploration.
Wow, that is pretty freaky. Well, it's getting late, says Garmachi. I think I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. No, I'm going to go to bed. So, good nice hanging with you guys. I think our stop's coming up in a couple days, but nice hanging with you. Yeah.
It's been very nice getting to know you all.
Remember, Mr. Simon here. We're gonna discuss some things with the rest of the band, and maybe we can get some an awareness campaign of some of the stuff that goes on out there. I sometimes hear rumors, but I've never met someone who has firsthand knowledge of that kind of crap.
Well,
So thank you very much.
Going to be kept quite busy on my current mission, but I will definitely be in touch.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And with that, the band gets up and heads to bed. Any last minute things you want to do before in your evening this day?
No, I'm just going to go back and plug myself in.
It's getting late for an old guy like me.
All right. In that case, I think we're going to bring today's adventure to a close. You guys are traveling between the stars on a ship in hyperspace. Alex is probably on board. We'll find out next time. He might have gotten left behind with Jar's luggage, but don't worry. I do plan on his bag showing up at some point. It's going to be I'm going to make sure it's interesting where it shows up. How about that?
I fully expect it to be like retconned as to what he was doing, and we knew where he was and stuff, but I like the idea that he just disappeared on the elevator and we just didn't care. Just went on without him.
Well, he must have surely gotten stuck on the other side of security,
Yeah.
A guy like that, maybe he got in trouble with checking his luggage and, had to get interrogated for a few days, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no big deal.
All right. You guys have any last minute questions or anything before we sign off here? Or
Don't think so.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, cool. Then thank you very much, everybody watching the stream or on the recordings. Let's do the sign off. Jar has already left, the master of the Ozu. There's me, the Dr. Izixs sort of folks here, and then we got Gepwin, who you're sliming some ranchers these days, right?
Yes, slime ranchers. I also seem to be competing with Bill on that new Opus Magnum game.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I go check you guys' videos out. Hey guys, people watching this, go check out their videos on this stuff. It's pretty sweet. They're both really good YouTubers. And then we got Bill, who is also doing the Opus Delios, and is also competing with me to be the most horrible DK2 player in the universe, I think, right?
Yep.
Yes. All right. So, thank you much for joining me, guys, and
thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for putting up with my craziness here. My awkward go through security episode. But
if only we had a bureaucracy montage to go along with it.
Oh, that's what Alex is going to be enjoying. Don't worry about that. I'm
getting
going to
paper
save that.
stamped, filling out forms, finding out he filled out the wrong form.
Someone tries to give him this bag that's not his, but he'll take it anyway.
He only gets to be in the next game after he wins Papers, Please.
Yeah, there we go.
Groovy, groovy, groovy. So, till next, everybody. Turtles. Woohoo!
Goodbye.
See ya.